Experts podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this podcast, Invisible Experts. Today, we start our first episode of season two with my very good friend Jeroen from Social Impact and another stuff. Hello, Jeroen. How you doing, man? How's it going? Long time. No,
Yeah,
see
long
you. It
time.
was
Good to
like
see you.
2 weeks, right? 3 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks ago when you were in Bali. Yeah. It was good to see you again there.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. We are really appreciate that you accept our invitation to this podcast. And how are you, man? How was your trip to Europe? It was good. A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me first. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I just went back to my annual trip to Europe to see my family. But yeah, it was good. Yeah. Helped my family to move a bit and stuff, but all good. Happy to be back now in Bali.
Yeah, it was really cool. For the audience, I was very fortunate because we spent our summer in Indonesia and we happened to visit Jeron. We spent few drinks and few dinners and we went around. Also, I was with my family and it was pretty cool, man. And we also were fortunate because we had the opportunity to um, get to know more what you do with social impact, how do you actually contribute to the community. That was pretty cool, man. My kids, they love it, especially the old one, of course, the small one. They didn't really realize, but the big one, he loved it. He always telling me about the filters and what a wonderful experience was to spend time with the local people, and it was pretty cool. But listen, before we talk about this, and the experience what actually physically spending time with you, I want to ask you about your background, right? Like, because it's very interesting. One of the things that I really liked about you is like this transition, right? This journey from a corporate executive and then to be the founder of Social Impact. So what was the actual inspiration of this transition?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. It's an interesting thing. That happened 10 years ago, actually. That transition, and I basically what I always say I'm a kind of an ex-corporate executive turned social entrepreneur. So basically, yeah. I mean, I was lucky. I'm very grateful to have my experience in corporate. Had a quite successful career, and I've been working internationally, mainly selling products on different markets in Asia, in India, Middle East, and then I moved to China. Lived 7 years in China. Came back to Europe to be a bit closer to my family. My parents getting older, and then yeah, no, again in a corporate job, very a new nice challenge in Ireland for a big English corporation, but then I felt like a little bit not very much aligned anymore with my values. I was just realizing that I was making, how can I say that, like, yeah, always working for people, helping people make money, and not really helping the people itself, being in that structure of a corporation. So I was running a big business of 280, $300 million with about 1,000 people under me in the yeast industry, the bread selling to bakeries. And then I just realized I need to change that. I had a kind of a shift, and like then I just said, okay. I was also missing Asia after having been in Asia for 6, 7 years in China and working in the region. And I said, I want to go back there. So the basically what inspired me was basically to just be more aligned with my values and trying to be more useful with the skills I learned and corporate and bring it to people and having a better impact, let's say, on society, on people, or on the planet. So that was the thing at that time.
Very interesting, man. Listen, one of the things that I really like about you is you kind of embedded this kind of global personality, right? This global persona, because okay, you are Dutch, but then you grew up in France, and then you moved to China, and then you are practically Indonesian. So I was wondering whether, you know, right now, such a global perspective and experience, perhaps shaped the way that you perceive society right now, right? What do you
Yes, I
think?
mean, no, yes, I agree with you. I mean, you're shaped by your experiences. I'm fortunate enough. I always say I'm very blessed that I had the opportunity to travel for my work before and cooperate in different countries. From young age, I was 2 years old. I moved from Holland to France. Had to learn a new language. So I speak six, seven languages, which is a great asset, basically. And I'm very grateful for my family to have been able to provide that to me. And with this base, it's like basically trying to understand people and different cultures. And yes, it has totally shaped me as the person I am today. And even my China experience was so interesting, so different because it's a very different culture. It was the most difficult to say, not difficult, but the most challenging to adapt to because it's very different than how we think in Europe. But at least that challenge was amazing because I learned a lot. And I must say that it's almost 20 years now that I'm living in Asia, and that's where I feel home. It's not my original home, but it's where I feel more home. So that's the thing. It's live a bit where you feel good, but and also for me now for the last 10 years, also where I can have more impact. It's also with the skills I have and the let's say the water filtration system that I provide and that I have found 10 years ago, and I'm still promoting. That's really was the right thing to do here in this part of the world. So yeah, I'm very grateful that I did always say good research about 10 years ago. What's going to be my next step? I took the time. I took a couple of months to sit back and understand what I could do. That transition is not easy because for 20 years I had salary every month on my bank account. I was an employee, and in the end it was quite a lot of money. But then suddenly it stops, and yeah, so it's a new life that you need to start. But we'll talk about a bit later, I guess, in the podcast today. But I mean, I'm super happy that I did the right choice at the right time in my life, let's say. And you don't know that; you just do it, and then you see. But reflecting back like 10 years back when that happened, uh, I'm happy I did that move. Really, really happy. It totally changed my life, and for the better. Yeah, and the fact that it's in another country that is not new for me, but it's just the fact that I can help people here in a very big country. Let's say it spans 5,000 kilometers long, Indonesia from west to east, and that it's impactful. What I do is just great. I'm
Hmm,
very happy that I find the right place.
that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Listen, I think, in our sector, in the sustainable sector, especially when you work with people, and you have to be in a way people's, you know, like a people's person, right? What I mean by that, you have to try to some extent setting empathy and, understand what people's problems are, and, maybe like be more horizontal, if you see what I'm saying, right? So what is very
Yeah.
interesting is what I the way that if someone asks me, okay, how would you define Jeroen? I would say definitely he's a people's person, man. You talk to everyone, you're super open, you adapt. So, and I was wondering whether this kind of experience of living abroad and in different contexts perhaps helps you to have this level of adaptability and understanding to, mimic or embedded yourself into other cultures. Hence, you can operate your project in a, as you said before, in a different setting as is Asian.
Yeah. No, exactly. Fully. I mean, the answer to your question is totally yes, 100%. I'm the fact that you live in different countries, you need to adapt. You learn a new language, a new culture, and every time is different. So it helps you a lot to try to understand people's challenges. For me being here, I mean, the first thing is always learn the language. So this is the first thing because it's so much easier. Just even in the beginning, a few words that you can greet people, say hello, thank you, how are you doing? Um, so that is the first thing for me. That's always helped me, and I got that very early. That it's super important. And even now here in Bali, where I live, you have the national language is Indonesian, Bahasa Indonesia. You have Balinese, but I don't speak Balinese, but I know maybe 50 words, but very important ones, and that I can talk to people in Malaysia really love it, and they see because they see that you basically you go to them and you show them respect and you just basically um, yeah get closer to them and they see you make an effort and people like that and so it's an important thing. You create a faster connection. I always say it's more easier. The ice breaking is much faster. And so this I've learned, and that's the first thing for me. And then yes, there's so many challenges in different countries, but also where I live here, it's not so easy to do business, to do things because there's laws, regulations, which don't make things always easy. But then there are ways you need to find, always be legal for sure, but like finding ways to be more impactful. And then the people, yeah, I mean for sure, but that's my natural thing, and this is like I love people. I'm as you said in our world of social enterprise because we work with a lot of in a lot of areas where with people who are not necessarily fortunate. So you need to have empathy. You know, if not you, if you have a cold heart, you can't do that work. Sometimes I need to also put a bit of a shield because it's sometimes too difficult for you, and you need to like you see situations which are very heartbreak. But what I'm saying is generally you need to get you need to be close and empathic with people because if not, you can't do that work. I've been, you know, in Indonesia. There's many, unfortunately, many disasters. We call the Ring of Fire. So a lot of volcanoes who sometimes erupt. We've had that in Bali 5, 6 years ago. Earthquakes, that's quite recurrent. And I've worked on in disaster relief situations with my product because it's very useful with the water filter after a disaster to bring water back to the people in a fast and easy way. I didn't know I would do that, but the fact that I'm here, I mean, it was naturally that I got involved into it. So I learned so much. I learned a lot. And so that shaped me totally for sure. And the thing is to remember is always to respect the people and to try and understand their situations. Even if it's a short contact you'll have with them, but at least you make them feel comfortable and that you care for them. That's very important, and it has to come from your heart. You just don't do it like this. You do it. You do it. And for me, it's I'm lucky. I've learned that, and yeah, my work in the social enterprise world has really helped me to become more that person and to be more empathic with the people.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I agree. I can tell. I can tell, like, having experienced different cultures, getting to know the people, I think it'll be easier for someone like you to blend in, right? And this is what my next question goes into the industries, right? Because I know you have a different background, and you kind of like, in a way, multiple cultures and industry you have worked before, you know. So, from your experience, how has that shaped your approach to social enterprise? Because, of course, you came from the corporate world, and then um, it's for profit, it's fine. But then you came across with this kind of model, right? Sustainable enterprise, where you have to balance it out, environment, social, culture, and then make your business profitable. So, how he helped having this experience in multiple industries?
Well, it helped a lot in the sense that yeah, I've been working in the ingredients industry mainly in corporate before, but it was also different industry like chemicals, like raw materials for food, for pharma, for paper and board. So each market has its specificities, and you learn some things work in one industry, some doesn't in others. But I had that. I was lucky enough to have that experience in different industry, which helped me to understand it better also here. And the question is all about the yeah the is it the world of social enterprise for profit, non-profit, and people will I think and still today people always put you into kind of like silos and in boxes, sorry, in boxes, you know. So for
Categories, yeah.
me, I mean, it's just categories, and that's the wrong thing. And I'm a blend of this. So in the sense that my corporate experience really brought me the good thing about that is that I have a lot of business sense and I've been running big businesses. So I know that you need to make money to be able to survive, pay your employees, it's the first thing. And so that business approach has always helped me. Since I started, I always make money, and I'm not. And I know in some cultures it's like okay, and in some other cultures it's maybe like, oh, you should not talk too much. That oh, you're in the NGO world, you shouldn't make money. Yeah, okay, fine, but I mean, I need to survive. I have staff and people to pay. So the thing is, I see it as two, like as two buckets. Sometimes I put more in one bucket, sometimes more in another, and then it's my own company, so I decide what I want to do. The point is, like when I do projects, like you've been with, when I do distributions to people who are less privileged in the city here in Indonesia, Denpasar, in Bali, these people has a big impact to give them water filters. They can't pay it, so I need to find sponsors, and then when I do that, for sure, I mean, I lower my price. I don't use my commercial price. I just make sure that because these products I buy, so I make sure I just don't lose money, and I just make sure that's it. And then that's fine. When we can do more, the unit price is low, and we can help more people and have more units and more filters. So that's just simple for me. And then on the other hand, I sell. I have customers, make a bit of money. I have resellers. We make money there too, and that's fine. What's the issue? The important thing is the impact you have. It's not about profit on profit. It's about what your action is and the impact you have on the people.
Interesting. So, from your perspective, how important is for a sustainable enterprise or organization to professionalize the staff to the point that they can make decisions, from a business perspective? Like, okay, being for profit, we cannot be only depending on donations or maybe grants. So, do you think it's important for our sector to perhaps improve and invest in capacity building in order to perhaps change or, in a way, transform the mindset of sustainable entrepreneurs or sustainable people who work for sustainable enterprises?
Yes, I think it's very important. I mean, um, it's important to make sure to professionalize the sector, and we need to, it's like when you talk about impact investment. This is
Mhm.
how do you balance profit and purpose? And when you have impact investors, they maybe wanna. What's important is that they also understand profit is something we need to do, but we need also to have. But it's also we need to be more patient before the company can make money, and the impact is important. So not necessarily look at the balance sheet. Sorry, at the like a profit and loss account and just what's the net profit. Uh, so this is where where this world of impact investing is still representing a very small minority of the global capital, which is expanding companies in the world. But it's important to have that, and I think to be more patient with the people as long as they do good work and that they have impact, and that will come then. Later, the profits will come anyway if they have a good market. But you need to have a product market fit or service market fit. It's very important to have like any enterprise. You need to make sure you're viable. And I'm a bit not against, but I don't like these debates about like, okay, um, should we be for profit, non-profit? What is the thing? The important thing is what you do, and then the in the end, it's very important still to be sustainable, and not just, as you say, wait on grants or on donations. So I have both, I built my business in both directions. So sometimes I do sponsorships, I get grants, I get money for the filters to help people, and I fundraise, and I'm quite good at it. And it's not bad, it's a good thing. For sure, I
Mm.
cannot just depend on that because then, oh yeah, if I'm not successful or if I don't fundraise, my business is zero. So the thing is, like, after you can transform this fundraising in also more sustainable let's say, actions, in the sense that when you start to work with a company, or I work with different NGOs, I'm all about partnerships. So because for me, example, the filters just arrive at the end when you need to, you have water in your tap or at your house, and then it's still not drinkable here in Indonesia. So then you use the filters to make it drinkable and potable and safe. But in some areas, the water is hard to get, and some remote islands in the east, like Sumba, Flores. So I work in these areas because they have more impact. I'm not doing the well building or the piping that brings the water to the village. It's other organizations who do that, and then we work together. And then they need my filters, and in the end, they purchase my filters. But it's a collaboration. And so, in the end of the day, it's just a client, but the impact is really high. So it's about to be able to have different avenues of revenue. Sometimes it will be, yeah, you need grants and donations to sponsor projects. Sometimes it will be working with different people, collaboration, and they buy your products. And then you also have the private sector, and I have businesses here. Here it's mainly in Bali, it's mainly the hospitality industry, the tourism industry, so hotels, restaurants, or boutique villas who would buy my filters. So I have also that part of the business, and then the consumers. So it's a blend, and it's a mix of different people, and it works well. And the great thing I have that I think is that I learned about this, and I tried really to diversify my sources of revenue, so that I'm able to be sustainable. Because in the end of the day, you need to be sustainable, meaning for me, meaning you need to be able to survive and to pay your staff, your employees, and continue your operations. And
Yeah,
this is what, just to finish on that, this is where my business experience and my corporate experience helped me a lot, to always have that vision. And that's the first thing. Is like, okay, how I need to be able to make enough money to have a sustainable company.
sure, sure. That's fantastic. And before we go in actually to explain the audience what social impact do, and you know, or the impact that you have created, I want to ask you about this human dimension, right? It's like when we put hats, okay? Sometimes we need to put the hat of an entrepreneur, an investor, a decision maker, manager, or whatever, right? And I want to ask you about this hat when you have to be human, right? And then perhaps you need to make tough decisions because otherwise you're running a business, right? And there is this kind of fine line to you have sometimes to make tough decisions because otherwise you wouldn't survive. So, as a human being, how do you navigate these inner, kind of tough decisions? What I mean by that is like, okay, I have empathy, as you mentioned before, that's why I started this project because I want to contribute to the planet, but then I'm running a business, and in order to, you know, keep moving in my impact journey, I have to make decisions and run a business and so on. So, as a person, right, as a human, how do you navigate these kind of dilemmas?
Well, it's not easy sometimes, because yeah, you have, as you said, you have to make tough decisions. In the corporate role, I had sometimes to fire people and things like that, which I really hated. Because that's also one of the reasons I kind of left that world, because I was quite at, let's say, senior level. So you have sometimes to make these decisions because of the business. But it's not easy. So I always had difficulties with this, and now I'm much more small. I have much more structures. Social impact is my main gig. I always say it's more a passion than a work, and I don't have a lot of staff. But yeah, sometimes I need to. Like at some point, I decided to keep some an assistant. Like right now, I just have a social media manager with me, and who helps me when I need when I'm away sometimes, just to keep the business running. But at some point, a couple of years ago, before COVID, I also had an assistant, because the business grew quite. The individual business of the let's say the consumers really grew quite fast, and I needed someone. So at some point after I didn't COVID hit, I didn't need that person anymore. I had to get that to let go that person, which is not easy, but it's just what it was. And then you try your best to explain the reasons, and then make sure you can't keep the job, but you try to help that person. What I did is, I mean, I found another job for my assistant at that time, so that was the thing I did, because I had connections and was lucky enough to work. But yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I'm very lucky having met you, and since this summer, we had the chance to get to know a little bit further. And I really like this kind of like dimension of you, which of course, make a positive impact as Jeroen as a professional, and it this kind of personal development, journey, right? That all of us, I suppose, we are in an ongoing process. So if you can suggest to people who wants to perhaps set up their own sustainable organization, or perhaps they relate to you when they struggle and they need to make tough decisions, and based upon that you have this kind of personal development journey and you have tools, what would you suggest to people like us that they have to make tough decisions, what to do? What do you suggest to them?
Yeah, in general, I mean, I was just what I mentioned before was more in a, let's say, in a company setting, in an
Yeah.
organization setting, as a founder or as a manager or as a boss, let's say. In general, in life, more broadly, I mean, yeah, also it's all a first all a journey for sure. What I do is my own personal journey by doing this, but I would say it's all about trying to start to reflect and just take a time to breathe and reflect on, okay, when you look at the decision to make or something, should I do this or not, is to ponder and weigh what are the pluses and the minus. And in the end, I mean, it sounds very simple, but if you feel, and it's a feeling, because sometimes they are facts, but sometimes also very much to your heart, like, okay, uh, for instance, in a relationship also, do I need this to leave this relationship if you're with someone, or what is it like doing good or bad to me more? What is it? There's some good things and some bad things, but how do I really feel? And it's basically to weigh what is the plus and the minus and see what is coming up and then make that decision. That's what it's a bit also as you say, like for me, it's more my gut feeling sometimes. I mean, I look at these things, I try to measure a bit what's plus, what's minus, and then just decide. But it's better to do something than not to do something, because if you just procrastinate or don't do the things, the pain will get bigger in the end. So yeah, that's what I would say, and it's also about thinking you're the best person to know yourself. So in the end, you know what's good for you. So this is a very simple concept for me. I mean, it's just to be honest with yourself and really sit back and think and be honest with yourself, and then just make that best decision for you. Uh, and also sometimes for sure talk to friends, the people who know you well, your partner, your wife, whoever it is, your parents, people that know you. If you're a little bit, how to say, if you're hesitant and you still don't know what to do, that's also one of the advices I would give, to ask friends or close people who know you well, what's the best for you, what do they think, and if you're still not sure yourself. So yeah, that's how I operate, and it has helped me for many years. But it's a journey, man. Like it's work in progress. I do a lot of personal development work, sorry, these days myself on me, and it's never ending. And in the end of the day, it's important. What I always say, it's important to feel good yourself to be able to help others to come back to where we work in that space of generally helping other people's improving lives of people with our products or our services or what we do. So it's also about setting boundaries and making sure you're good at what you do, and that you not, because for me it's just a lot what I do right now. It's just also getting more efficient in my time management, saying more no to people, because you can always help, you can always be good, and I'm a person in this island who is known for that. I have a lot of people who come to me, but sometimes what is it also, will that help me, will that help the situation? And that's what I need to do more and assess more before saying yes to people. So that's learning this too. Yeah, it's how to say no, which is the most difficult. I'm reading quite a good book on that, we'll talk about it later. but the power of a positive no. So
Mhm.
yeah, this is this is what I'm trying to do right now, and I'm doing right now, and it's helping me a lot. It's helping me a lot.
That's amazing. I actually stick with this power of the positive, no? So now, of course, we're gonna talk about social impact, but I always like to tap into the person that is behind these fantastic, initiatives. So social impact
Hmm.
focuses on providing access to clean water in Indonesia. Can you tell us about the initial moment or perhaps an event that led you to start this venture?
Yeah, sure, sure. For me, it's quite clear and simple. Um, when I decided to quit corporate world, I knew what I would do. I read about social enterprise. That's something interesting. And then I went to back to Asia and spent some time in Singapore. I knew I wouldn't stay there, but just to do a bit of research and see what I could do and what are the main issues in the world. And then I read about water and about some UN and UNICEF reports, especially about children. And I read horrible statistics. So then I said, I need to do something. But I felt cold, I need to do something to improve this and to work. So it's very simple. I can give you this every 2 minutes in the world, like a child dies from diarrhea or waterborne diseases, and that could be avoided. It's really horrible statistics. In the country where I live, it's still about 28 to 30,000 kids every year. It's many babies, yeah. It's what we call infant mortality. So babies who have stomachs are not very much developed, and then they get a severe diarrhea by drinking unclean water, they die. So I saw this 10 years ago and I said, I need to work in that thing. And I just then said, okay, water filtration, what is it? And I want to be sustainable. I want to not be an NGO, just working on with, let's say, grants and coming from the business world. So I said, I did research on water filter below $30. And then I found a supplier and basically moved to Indonesia because this supplier is based here. So yeah, so that was the initial moment, and I'm very grateful because 10 years later, I'm still doing it. I'm super motivated about it. I have these aha moments about I know like why I do that. It's not easy for sure. We all have challenges, but in the end of the day, that was the moment that sparked that thing in me. Is like I need to do something there. I talked about this too because I saw it myself. I did a kind of a TED talk a couple of years ago here in Indonesia in Ubud about the earthquake in Lombok, and I came to a village and I just heard that 3 babies just died because they had diarrhea and drink unclean water because they didn't, and there were still two who were quite sick, and I was so devastated I couldn't sleep that night. We saved these 2 other ones because we brought the filters, but then like you feel, fuck, had I been there earlier, I could have done something. It's just life, but at least I saved a few of these. The other ones who were sick, but they they got saved and they were better. So like saying kind of there was a title a bit of I'm not a doctor, but sometimes I save lives, and you don't see it. Yeah, but there I was really faced with it. I knew it, but then when I just connected to that my initial thing, why I decided to do that, because I read the statistics, and then you're faced with it in life, and you say, now I know. And then I was one of these moments where it was hard for me, but I decided to continue because I knew at least uh, often, you help people, and you these extreme situations are not everywhere, but they happen. And there are a few babies I've saved here in this country, so without knowing them always, but at least I know that's real. So that's the thing which started me, like really inspired me to do it.
Mm, very interesting, man. Thank you for sharing this. Like as any company, I suppose you might face some challenges, right? So, from your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced while working to provide access to clean water in Indonesia? And then, when you face a challenge, how do you try to overcome them or overcome the problems that you faced?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, what comes to mind is two things. The first thing is the like the culture here, let's say the trust, because you provide this filter, you go to a village and you tell people, hey, this is safe to drink. Number one, you're not Indonesian. Okay, I speak the language, I learned it, and I no problem, but I'm from a different country. And why would they trust me? Why, and it's not at all in their culture, the filtration method. So especially in villages, in more urban areas like big cities like Jakarta, Surabaya, also here in the capital city in Denpasar, people who are more like middle class people, they know about filtration and they would be more trustful on it. But in villages where I work and when I have more impact in the communities, it's not always easy. So how I overcome that? I mean, I saw that very fast and very quickly, and it was a big challenge. But then I work with the community leaders, so the influencers, not the Instagram ones. I'm talking about local influencers, the head of the village or the head of the community, let's say the religious community, people who have. So I went to see them first and explain what my part was and say, hey, do you have an interest in this? This could be good for your community. So they tried it, and often they really liked it because they saw the impact, and also they said that can be really good for their community. So the good leaders, most of them are good leaders. They decide then to help me and basically talk to their people, and then we could implement the technology and the filter, and people trust it. It's just by them and me drinking it in front of them, it worked. Me alone, no. So it's very. This is what I discovered, and that's how I overcame that challenge. Um, that's the first one. And the second one is, I'd say, government support. It's complicated because there are not a lot of, let's say, motivational grants or money or whatever you can call it, or budgets for the government, fortunately, here to help their people on clean drinking water. So, how I could overcome it is very simple. I just decided to do it myself and find my own funds and fundraise privately and find sponsors, work with corporations, with different people, and just like not wait to do things. And that's how I overcame that challenge. But for sure, it's a bit frustrating sometimes, but it's just how it is. It's just the fact that um, unfortunately. The budgets of the health ministry are not necessarily focused on clean drinking water. It's changing a bit, but it's not great. There's more on other things it's focused. So yeah, that's how I overcame that, just by doing
Yeah.
and finding other sources of money,
I
other
mean, like,
resources.
I think your work is fantastic, but also is very efficient and generally is a very good product, right? So when I was there, when you travel to, let's say, to another context, right? When everything is different, maybe you were a little bit cautious, right? And water sanitation is key, right? And then it was very interesting because even though I know your product and so on, I was like, but dude, seriously, this is gonna clean the water to the point that just take water out of the tap and then just put it in your filter and so on. And you were like, dude, yes. And then, like I try it, and of course, it's very nice. The taste is fantastic. But like, so I suppose for you, it's a challenge to educate consumers, right? Because consumers,
Yeah, it is.
they think, oh yes, I'm gonna buy, I don't know, like other type of water. I'm gonna buy the plastic bottle from the supermarket because surely uh, it's being like filtered better and so on. So I want to ask you, how do you actually like while you're selling educate to the consumer?
Yeah, sure. There's also a lot of education part in my product and in the selling. So that's also what I'm passionate about. So I do go a lot to schools also, and we do projects with schools, explaining about why it's not just water, it's sanitation also about washing your hands and with soap, and also reduction of plastic, because the great, I mean, the three main benefits of the product is, the first one, the most important one for the people, is save money. And here it's still a low income country, so that's super important. one is the health. It's healthier because it still keep minerals, and that's why you said you tasted the water. It tastes better than the water you buy because it's a different system of filtration, and we still have minerals mainly because the water here is coming from the ground. And the third one is the environmental benefits, reduction of CO2 when people still boil in the villages, and also reduction of plastic bottle use. So I have this mission to also have, as I said, I have a beautiful product. I'm so happy I did that research, and as you said, I love it. I'm just very passionate about it, and it's really changing people. So yes, there's the educational part to start and to make sure they understand and they get it. Especially as I said here in Indonesia, not it's not a huge culture about filtering your water. In general, where people feel safe, not just here, but in most of the world. Oh, I have a plastic bottle. It's water from a company. It has a brand on it. I can drink it. It's safe. Um, so there is a bit more of work to do here, but in the end, it's the fun. For me, it's the fun. It's challenging. It's harder, but it's also the fun part because once you overcome this challenge and you're successful, you have a kind of a ripple effect because people really like, oh, really? And then it's word to mouth. So tell you the truth, I mean, like my consumer business, mainly the same way I'm calling that the households, like it's a household product. It's I mean, I definitely did a lot of marketing here. I mean, it's every time my new customers are people who just know someone who bought the filter and they came to me. And so that's the best, that's the best way of promoting a product. I mean, it's so good that people come to you without you having to put too much advertising. So that's mainly here in the city, but like it's great. So it's just like it sells the product sells itself right because it has so people then say, oh wow, I just really save money, the taste is good, I don't need to at 10 o'clock at night you don't have water, you need to wait next morning to go to the shop and go and buy the big gallon 90 liters heavy, bring it to your home. So here it has a lot of advantages, and then people saying to me, it's a no-brainer. Everybody should have in his house. Yeah, sure, man, but that's why I'm here and that's my work. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
But, I've done a lot of work on it and I'm still very proud and happy about the number of units I've sold in this country. I mean, like since I started, more than 400,000 people already drinking, from the filters. And so, look, I mean, it's better than not. So, now as I said, I have my capacity and my limits. I'm one person. I have one staff, and that's it. And we do what we can. So we can always be better. Can always be scaled. There's always better ways. But I'm already happy with what I do. And the way to scale the project is also to work with bigger projects like for instance in Lombok, the island next door, is to have a big project. Actually, you're based in Spain, but with a Spanish NGO who gets money from the Spanish government and supplies filters for Lombok and do some hygiene programs also. So it's beautiful. We started around the earthquake and just before on that island, we were already working together. And when this event happened, then government supported, but we were able to sustain it. So every year we still get the money, and in that area which is still a bit devastated by the earthquake, we bring 1,500 filters every year. We supply, so it's about 10,000 people every year, new people who can drink from the filter, and it's a beautiful, let's say, project. It's a beautiful thing, and I work with a local NGO for sure who's implementing and doing training because you need to train on the product. What I do here in Bali, I train them. I do the initial start day, and then they continue and they do it. So it's just amazing. So yeah, happy to that's my way of scaling my business, and it works because then it's big quantities, big orders. I have a similar project in Sumba, which I started a year and a half ago. It's an island, a bit more in the east coast of Timor. Very beautiful island, quite poor, not many people, but very hard in water access. So I work with NGO, bring the water to the people, and then they buy the filters from me, and we distribute the filters to the communities once the water is closer to the homes or to the schools. We also supply schools with the filters.
That's fantastic. There are two topics that I'm always interested about, which are around companies. First is about social evaluations, and then reputation. So, and it's very important for companies to have good reputation, especially when you are so in contact with the community. So I was wondering how social impact manage so well reputation, especially as we said before, people has so little knowledge about this kind of alternative, which obviously make a very positive impact because less bottles, the water tastes better. Also, you take all the bacteria out of the water, which makes you sore. You don't have problem with your stomach and so on. So how social impact, first of all, manage such a good reputation, and secondly, how do you engage with the communities to evaluate you well based upon your product?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, Andres. Yeah. Well, first, I mean, the reputation you build is trust. It's trust that you build, and you do that. I mean, for me, I just started from zero. I just came here and started that. But I got in the beginning. I also went to the villages. I didn't sell in the city. I went 3, 4 times a week to an area of Bali in the east, like at least an hour drive from here, uh, which is quite poor, more let's say, where it's a bit less income. Tourism doesn't go there that much, and so I chose that area, and I found a friend of mine who became my second family, my Balinese family, guy who came with me, and we went around with the car and the filters in the back, and just doing around and selling them, like educating the people. So it's that trust that I built initially with these communities in the east of the island, and then it was a lot of efforts because you had to go like a lot of driving. We spend long days, and we get also a lot of rejections because people don't have money, not because they don't like the product, they can't afford it. So, despite all this, we were successful, and it's just then because the product is good again, it builds its own trust and its own reputation. So I didn't have, still have much to do. I mean, I introduced it, but then I'm super confident on let's say on the impact and people really see it. So I'll give you an example. In
Hmm.
2017, I did my first crowdfunding campaign. As such, was a company from London who approached me. It was a platform who was just new, and they're helping social entrepreneurs to raise money. And they found me online through a video, and they liked the project. And I said, yeah, but I'm not equipped. I don't have time. It's a whole marketing campaign, 4 or 5 months. And then I have a limited amount of time, a month and a half to do the campaign. And then they really insisted. I said, okay, let's do it. It was a very stressful time because I had also to reach the goal. If I didn't reach the goal, I didn't get the money. It was really like a real Kickstarter campaign. And in the end of the day, we managed. We had funded 2 days before the end. It was very stressful, and I got money about. I raised 60,000 US dollars around at that time for about 1,500 units, mainly for families, but also the school in 2 villages in East Bali. And when I was implementing it, I went there and then I wanted to also check, okay, because it was a big project, and I distributed them over 2 weekends, and 200 people were following my training at the time. I did 2 per day. It was like crazy. I never did something such a big scale, but in the end it worked. And then 7 months later, I hired a lady who was specialized in evaluation, monitoring and evaluation of the filters and of the impact that they have. And well, like it was about 9 months I think later, and 94% of the people were using them, and they got a. We interviewed them not just on the qualitative, but also quantitative, but also qualitative questions, and basically I got on the fact that they were saving money, on the fact that they were also healthier, and I got a 4.3 average out of 5. So it was just amazing. I was also quite surprised by the answers. So basically, I'm lucky that that product is good enough, and for sure we go back and check, and I can immediately see if people use it or not. So we have a very good utilization rate because of the quality of the product. So it's really impactful, and on the long term, because the filter is great. The filter, you need to change only the candle itself. You need to change every 3 years only. So it's super long. And then when you need to buy just a candle, it's only 8.5 US dollars. So it's super cheap. So it's like again, it's fantastic product. So that's the thing, but you need also to follow up, make sure that things are done and properly, and that people use it. And as I said, we do that every time I go and I check. I mean, people use the product, and like as I said, about 95% of the people.
Yeah, that's very interesting, man. Thanks. Look, there are in this type of organizations or enterprises like yours, there are always intangibles, right? Positive intangibles, what we suppose we define in businesses
Hmm.
and so on, which is like
Hmm.
community engagement, impact, and so on. So first, I want to ask you, how do you guys actually identify communities that could benefit from your clean water solutions? And how's the process for implementing these solutions? How do you identify them? Okay, I identify them, and then you go there and provide the product. How do you do this?
Yeah, a very good question. So for me, it's like very simple. I mean, I've been here now, okay, 10, 11 years, 11 years actually. I started business 10 years ago. I have experience. I know people. I have great connections. So I've traveled in the also on the island. So I have my own communities that I identify, and it's mainly I can see it's access to water. It's let's say, is there water source close? Is there what do they do as a job? How much money do they earn? And then what do they buy as water? So that's the first question I ask. How do they drink water? What kind of type is it? Water that they buy in the shop? Is it boiling water from the tap? So, and then I also talk to the head of the village generally and trying to find like basically we have a list of the people who are also the less fortunate and who earn less. So then I target these people because I can't, when you have this project, you can't give them to everyone because these are funded projects with sponsors. So we have to select some people, and that's what we do. It's hard for some, but it's what it is. So we really target the most vulnerable communities. That's what I do on my side. And then the other point, and you saw it, it's collaboration. I
Yeah,
mean, and we did a lot during COVID also, when no one was here, there's no tourists, it's very hard for the people. Because like more than half of the Balinese families depend on tourism. So I work with other organizations that were also providing food and other things during that time, and to basically we assessed and we did some surveys about who is really in need because you can't help everyone. And so that's what we do. And now I work now in Bali. I work with other organizations like Ragam Foundation from Nick who's
sure.
created that organization, who is mainly in the food area. He's cooking beautiful meals at his own garden also, where he grows organic vegetables and for his own meals, and he supplies them to orphanages and to people who work on the big dumps we have here. Unfortunately, very big garbage dumps, and there's a lot of people working on that, like sorting the trash and trying to resell some of the trash. So that's the community he focuses on, and then he has a lot of network with his staff in the poor communities, which are not necessarily people from Bali originally, but like people who live here for many years from other islands, from Java, from the east, from Sumba, Flores. So they are a bit, I would say, out of the system, but they are not 100% included. So that's the people that we target, and that's how I do. And it's because it's always like, unfortunately, you have to select, and then the
Yeah,
selection has to be the most impactful. And then, sometimes, if you're lucky, you have a bit more money, and okay, the neighbors also saw it, want it, so you do the next community next door because they're also equally, let's say, equally underprivileged. So, yeah, it's all about. So the demographics, just to give you an idea, or to your listeners, the audience, is people who are construction workers here who build all these hotels or villas, people who sell food on the street food vendors in the evening with a little cart and go around. It's people that's the community you saw. It's people who are like, for instance, women who work in the tourism sector who are sewing some products, like, or making some little souvenirs for all these kind of jobs. Security guards, a lot of security guards in every hotel thing. So these people don't earn a lot of money. They work at night. So this is the people we target generally, the population demographics we target, because we know that these guys buy their water, and for them it's really a lot. It can represent the day they buy the water about a third of their income. So it's a lot.
Wow. Wow, that's very interesting. Like what we just talked before about this educational process that you also, integrate into your, let's say, commercial strategy, right? Because then
Hmm.
you identify the community, then you engage with them, and then you educate them or empower them in a way, because then it's cost effective for the communities. They produce less bottles. The problem that Indonesia has in terms of pollution, especially with plastics. So I want to ask you if you have specific strategies, perhaps, to use to engage and empower the communities that you target, or it just naturally and then it just happens because it's just so embedded in your chain of production or operation, and then you don't have to like develop new
No,
strategies.
no. Yeah, yeah. What I would say on that is, it's a bit what I explained before. It's like, yeah, there's some embedded thing, but I mean, I'm a bit like you. I don't know like you, but I say I don't like too much the word education. I like to just make say like transmit knowledge.
Yeah.
Just your vehicle, because we're not because we know something we more superior or something. That's why I don't like the word. That is, it's just me personally. But yeah, um, what I'm saying is like what I'm trying to express is that we have some knowledge about plastics, about pollution, about issues in the world that maybe these people don't have or don't, it's not part of their world. But if you transmit that knowledge, they can also have a better. It's important for them. It's a more cleaner, healthier environment. So it's just for them. It's also an added benefit. So that's why we do that. But like I don't have particular strategy. I mean, my strategy is always to go to make sure the communities are really in need, and that talking to the leaders there and see, because the one thing is like by bringing a product, you change the behavior. Like it's all about behavioral science, and if you want to spark a change in behavior, you need to also get the people to, I'll say, to get the buy-in and to understand, they understand that by changing that behavior, something better will come out. There'll be a better outcome than the situation they have now. So I do it just very naturally, and as a bit like embedded, the product is showing its qualities, and then I explain about its benefits. I explained to you earlier environmental, health, and economics. I just explain it to them, and then not everybody will understand it because often, yeah, people are not really focused with this or not necessarily have the capacity to understand because of their educational level. But in the end of the day, a few understand, get it, and then it's like it creates a ripple effect, and then they talk about it in the community. I've seen that often, and then like we got a lot of people up, hey, we want it too. We will love it to get some filters because it's great. So this is the way. So it's making sure there is an audience for that they can understand first, and that's why you talk to the leader first of the community. Is that a good thing? What do you think? Because you're just here to bring stuff, you need to make sure it will be accepted, and
Hmm.
then we know it will have an impact, but maybe they're not ready. So some communities are not ready for that. So it's to find the right fit, basically. So that's my approach, basically, and it's all about asking, making surveys, going there first. That's what we do. And when I work with my partners, when it's not me, when I have partners, that's what I tell them. That's my script. That's the people I need. That is my prerequisites. Have they answered these questions if I don't do it directly before we engage with these communities? And that works. That works.
Sure. Wow. Thank you, man. Do you have, or maybe you can tell what has been the most impactful or memorable moment for you since starting social impact?
Yeah, I love that question. I have a few, but I mean, let's. I'll take a recent one. Um, was in February this year, 2024. I went to an island mentioned before, Sumba, and I'm working there with an American NGO who does surveys on improving the access, bring the water closer to communities. They do rain catchment tanks or piping or uh, digging boreholes, depending on the situation. Also work with schools there and communities. And once we went to the community there, we were there for a week and implementing the program, checking things. I went for a filter distribution in a very remote area, 2 hours by drive, like on a dirt road. We arrived very close to the sea. They had water in the sea, but it's not drinkable. And then we basically just built a borehole there that the village didn't have electricity, like 6 months before. So we had to wait for them to get electricity to be able to get the water out of the ground. At some point, we also explored the solar, if that would be able to have electricity, but it didn't work out. It was too complicated, too expensive. So we brought electricity to that village, and
Wow.
then also related to then the borehole, getting the water 35 meters deep out of the ground, and linked to a 2,000 liter tank, which was in the middle of the school premises. And then yeah, the basically we did the inauguration of that day, and also the government came, the people from the school ministry, the education ministry came, because we just basically brought a bit of electricity and water to the village, and then that tank would be the feed, like say, water for the whole village. It was not small village, just like 50 families. But we changed their lives, and we could see it. I mean, also I distribute, like I trained 50 families on the filter. We gave a filter to each family. And we put 6, 7 filters in the school also. But then these guys didn't want us to leave. They were after the official ceremony, groundbreaking, and me doing my training. We went for lunch with the village leaders and the people, and started to dance and all that. And then it was like already 4 o'clock. We arrived there at 10 in the morning, and we said, "Hey, we need to go back." And they didn't want us to leave, and they really, I felt, they hugged us and all that, all the team, and then I was like, I know why I do this job. Very changed their life and they understand it. So that's my latest aha moment. But I've had a few, but I'll just mention that one because, you know, as you say, there are challenges. It's not easy. I do it for 10 years and you could lose your motivation. But for me, I never saw it as a job. So I've had these moments where I was a bit more down, but when I have this, I said, I know why I do that. Like
That's
when I did the
amazing.
earthquake, and the earthquake was another one, yeah, like when I explained about the baby dying earlier, and then you know why you do that stuff. And yeah, I mean, not for me, I don't have any pride or any, it's not, it's just like, it's just flowing. And I say, I know I've been put on this planet for that, maybe. I've got the skills from corporate before. I know how to run a business. I know how to be efficient logistic wise, bring the filters to remote communities. There's a lot of logistical challenges in this country too. It's a lot of islands, how you bring things from A to B. And so I have the skills, I can bring them up and it works. And I'm in the right place, the right time. I chose for it. I found it. I mean, I did good research, but still. And now, when I have these moments, as I explained before, like I said, yeah, it's the right thing to do. So
That's amazing, man.
that's it. And then,
That's really
mhm.
cool, especially because when we talked in the beginning, you were talking about transformation. This a journey that you were transforming to yourself in order to make some input to society. And then in these little moments, you have your, in a way, payoff. I mean, of course, as you said it before, it's not about, your ego or whatever. It's just because you really mean to transform society. And in a way, you did it because you transform yourself, which is very interesting.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
this is what I like, this kind of our organizations, right? Sustainable organizations, which is a blend of business and purpose. It could be environmental, it could be cultural, it could be social. So, from your experience and your perspective, what makes a successful sustainable enterprise?
Well, first is to be sustainable in terms of financials. This is the first thing. As you said, we're a bit in a blended world, but you need to to have a sustainable company, meaning whatever your sources of finances are, let's say your sources of revenue, to be more precise, they need to be sustainable, meaning you need to have revenue and you need to continue continuously, whatever it is.
Mm.
So that's the first thing. Can be grants, why not? But grants can maybe stop at some point. It can be funding from some sponsors, but every time you need to renew it. But that's fine. At least as you have the resources in your company, the capacity to get that. Can be sales. My product, I said, is just land. I sell it. I have private markets, and it's perfect. So this is that is very important. That's the first thing, because you have staff, you have people, you have costs. You need to be able to survive. In the end of the day, it's not sustainable, and that's it. You stop it. So, and for me, it would be very heartbreaking because I know, suppose I couldn't continue. I mean, I would be so frustrated because I know the impact of my product. But fortunately, I've set the environment and my experience, and also the, let's say, the background I have and everything that are inducing like a profitable business. So yeah, so that is the first thing, and then it's like I'd say the second thing is to be uh, just to make sure of the long term, or I would say, or more the long lasting impact of what you do. Like for me, it's a product, but can be a service. Making sure that it is not just a short thing, like it has to have a long term impact, and it has to be also implemented in the communities in a good way. That it is not just like you come and you bring something which will not be used, a technology that people don't understand. So this is super important, and my tech is kind of not super simple, but simple enough to be understood easily, and that helps. But I've seen a lot of projects failing in Africa and different places because of that, and there's not enough demand. People got financing, put some wells of this and that, but then the wells break and people don't know how to repair them. So it's a long-term impact. You need to make sure that it's sustainable and that you have also the capacities, the technical capacities, or at least explain if you put a well or something in a place that the people at the end can own that well and also themselves or pump, let's say, and themselves maintain it if that and the maintenance of it. So there's a lot of examples where that didn't happen. So fortunately, I'm not in that space, but like that's very important to have the sustainability of to be able to the people can use your technology on the long term.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Like I would love to talk about failure, right? Because there is a tendency to, always to talk about the good stuff. Yeah, but it's been proved that we also learn from failure. So, you, as an experienced, sustainable entrepreneur who's been through, a lot, first of all, for you, how do you deal with failure? Or, well, first of all, what do you think is failure based upon your objectives from social impact? And then how do you deal with it, from like a managerial perspective, but also as a human being, this kind of global dimension? Because, we have the tendency to kind of like show off and say, okay, we do this good thing and so on. But then sometimes it's hard to relate to the success, right? Because not many people can do it or cannot make it. But it's good to talk about failure. So, from your perspective, how do you manage failure? What do you consider failure?
Well, I think for me, failure is when you miss something, you don't achieve a target or something that was dear to you and that you wanted to achieve. So that's the first thing. That's how I would define it. But then, like again, it's also about being objective and being not too hard on yourself. You mean, is that something I could do? Is that something was really achievable? If you set too important or too hard objectives, you're gonna fail a lot. Um, in the startup world, where I'm very much involved, because this is one of my ventures, but I have a few other ones, and that's my main thing that where I came from. I'm still passionate, but I have a few other things I do here in Indonesia. Um, it's if the company can't continue, if we fail because the company goes bankrupt or we can't pay our salaries anymore, our staff. I have another startup here in Bali with 20 people. I mean, it's still working. It's great. But like I have a responsibility of I have 20 employees. I built it over the last 2 years in the organic fruits and vegetables market. So if that, for instance, would go bust or whatever for a reason, and we were close to it like 6 months ago, there's a lot of variation of prices, but we could steady the ship, and we went through a difficult period. But suppose it had failed, yeah, or it had stopped, or we had to stop, yeah, it would be failure for me. But then you learn from it, and that's always for me a magical thing. Is like, how do you transform yourself and learn from your failure or your mistakes that you have made? Because you sometimes you make a few mistakes, you make a wrong assumption, and then yeah, you fail. So I see it as a beautiful way of transforming and trying to understand, not to make it again, and learn. Because a lot of successful entrepreneurs or people in the business world, we know about them because they're successful, but we don't know that they've been failing a lot of times before. And it's the repeat. It's a repeat of it, and not losing faith in yourself, trying to repeat a bit what you've done because you know this didn't work, and changing your angle and your perspective, and then moving again and having that energy to start again. So this is super important. And I've had, man, I mean, I had a lot, in but in for social impact, I wouldn't say failure, but I know I could scale it even more. I could do more. I could find beautiful sponsors, more even bigger numbers, but I just, how can I say, I just don't feel it's the right thing right now for me, because I don't want to be overwhelmed. Also, I need to be able to feel good and do what I can and not just overload myself. So this is very important. And again, it's coming back to boundaries, how you set boundaries, and how you say no to things. So yeah, so I don't I've learned, I think I've learned from my mistakes and my failures. Uh, I know that also in social impact, I have a lot decided sometimes to let things go and not to push too much, because this is to avoid this, because then you feel you put, again, you don't want to, whatever you do is already good, you have an impact, but you can scale it in a way. But as a 2 person company, I know I can scale it up to a certain point. If I want to scale it more, I need more resources, more staff. I need to have people in different areas, maybe branches and stuff like that. I mean, today I don't think I need it, because I don't want to recreate a whole company and a whole structure uh, that is not needed for me, because I'm already, as a person, I can handle a lot, and I've been selling these products almost every big island in this country, and I've had projects in many islands, Lombok, Sumba, Kalimantan, which is Borneo, Sumatra, Java for sure, the main island, here Bali because I'm based here, Lombok. So, okay. So that is what I've achieved in Sanan. I think it's okay. And I know I can always do more, but I also say, that's fine. I'm happy. That's also maybe my biggest lesson, is like, I'm happy with what I do, with the impact I have. And there are moments over the last years, there are moments where I was like, I had years where I remember 1 or 2 years in the beginning in 2015, I had a very bad year. I was not feeling good myself. I was wondering why I started that. I was just 1.5 years after starting all this. I was a bit depressed, and I said, do I really want to do that? And I had to basically to make sure that's the real thing I wanted to do. And then I just looked at myself, and then I said, yeah, but I had a very disappointing year. It was failure, but it was needed, because I was in a transition phase. I needed to position myself as that, and then I said, no, that's what you want actually, but do it a bit differently, and you need to be also able to do it in a good environment. And at that time, it was hard, because it was very hard to get my work permit right and all these things. And it was complicated. So it was a lot of things. But I still persevered. I'm super happy. I went through that difficult period, and now I'm here, and then I'm very happy that I'm still so motivated, and I will still do that work for many years to come.
Yeah. Wow. Very interesting. So imagine you have a time machine, right? And
Yeah.
if you could go back to the start of your journey with social impact, what advice would you give to yourself or to your younger self? Is there anything you would have done differently?
Maybe just yeah. Um, how can I say? It's an interesting one. Um, like back at the beginning. Um, no, I'm sorry. I don't see it. I mean, I'm like I like,
It's okay. It's okay.
as I said, maybe it's more about like things like on mistakes you would do, or things like, okay, how would you do it differently? But I'm happy with what I did. I mean, the journey I just went
Sure.
through, I just explained about my difficult moment 1.5 year after I started in 2015. But I don't know. I mean, it's it was maybe meant to be then, and it was just maybe a reality check about, do you really want to do that? But it was more linked to, yeah, so to the difficulties to do your work in a proper, nice, and legal way here. So, but no, I mean,
Ha-
I think I'm happy with what I did. I would just say maybe like, yeah, maybe I would have listen more to some, not listen more, but like maybe try to get some more. Uh, how can I say? Ask for more help at the beginning, because I was a bit lost, and I would have. I didn't know, maybe I didn't have that big network then at that time here. I'm talking about 9 years ago, and maybe I was a bit lost, and I would have had maybe a bit more. I should have had maybe, or tried to ask for more for help or guidance, and I didn't do it. Maybe my ego, I don't know, but I maybe would have helped me.
yeah. And what would you say to imagine you going back and you would talk to your kid like to yourself when you were a kid? What would you tell to that kid?
About
Maybe
what?
like
About,
about what would you tell him? Like, imagine have a time machine and tell these kids, say, dude, you can't imagine what you're gonna do with in the future. What would you tell
oh
your own
yeah,
kid?
yeah. I mean, yeah, you don't know what you're gonna become and do. So,
Yeah,
but I'm very happy. I mean, I'm just, I think I feel blessed. I mean, I just say, like, I would tell him, if it's my kid, like, hey, you're gonna have a beautiful thing. Believe in yourself. Just do what comes
fantastic.
in front of you, and try to handle the best you can. Because even give you an example, like, not as my young kid, but when I did that transition, it seems all easy and like 10 years ago, but no, it was not. It was like, oh, did I do the right thing? When I was based in Singapore for a couple of months, when I did my research on the filters and all that. I also started another company, which is not existing anymore, but in tech and in finance. It was very interesting to be in that world with another business partner. So I learned a lot. And at that time, I was like, oh, I mean, I'm not going to earn money. It's all a risk. It's all ventures. You put money and you're not sure you're going to earn money. It takes time. It's a new company. And I'm super happy that I went through that period, because I was very, like, 2, 3 months, I was like, "Ah, man, you should go back to corporate. You're going to get a big salary and it's going to be all fine." But this constant little voice in your head, and like, because I was in a situation I never had faced in my life, and I had a lot of uncertainty. But on the other hand, I know I have skills, and that's just a period to go through. So it was that battle, and I'm happy the right one won, and that little voice got shut down a bit, and that I decided to pursue and continue. And this is also maybe something that, yeah, characterizes me, like really the perseverance, because this is in this world, if you want to continue, you need to have it, especially in pushing even Asia with all the bureaucracy, the difficulties. You just need to be patient, and that's it. If you don't, just move, go away. Sometimes it's hard. it to myself, but just don't get mad. Just keep create. It's okay. Everything was gonna be alright in the sense. So that's why I love Bob Marley and his song.
Cool, 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 man. Listen, we almost wrap up,
You're right.
and I want to ask you like the last two questions. First, if you can maybe suggest to our audience couple of books or perhaps films or things to go and look out there, or sources that you think influenced your work and the philosophy that you have to run businesses like yours, what would you suggest?
Hmm. Yeah. Actually, I very recently, the last 2 years, I do a lot of personal development work,
Mhm.
and these are the books that I would suggest and the things that I work on. In general, I like to, as an author and a guy that I like is a guy called Robin Sharma. He's a very famous, let's say, business mentor, and he's been doing a lot of things about um, how to better manage your life and your habits. And yeah, so he has some good books like his famous one was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. That's the first one I read about 15 years ago. But I regularly buy some of his books. It's quite cool. That's one thing. The main thing is I mentioned a bit earlier. I was reading a book called The Power of a Positive No. Um, and let me check because I have it here. But um, 1 second, because I wanted to check the name of the guy who wrote it. Yeah, it's William Ury, Ury, and it's basically how to say no and still get to yes. But it's basically explaining how to set boundaries and say no to people. But actually, you say by doing that, first it's a yes. You say yes to yourself, then a no to them, and then you get a buy-in from them because they understand you. So it's a kind of a triple yes in the end. So it's really a cool book. I'm reading it about now, especially in terms of time management and things, because I have a lot of things on the plate. And the last one I would suggest, and I think that's one you would love because it makes me think of you actually, because of
Mhm.
his look a bit. He looks very South American, and he's not. He grew up in the States, but it's a guy called um, what's his name again? Yeah, Dene Maria Sebastiana, and it's a book
Okay.
called Fierce and Tender, and it's about
Fierce and
healing the deep
tender.
masculine. Yes,
Fantastic.
it's called about you find it on you just go on Amazon. You find healing the deep masculine, and on the title is a memoir of an urban medicine man. So
Okay.
this guy has been doing a lot of men's work. So I just gonna talk a bit about that. Yeah, I for the last 3 years, I attend what we call men's groups. It's just like support groups, and we're 10, 15 men here. We meet every week, and we talk about issues of general life. We're not like here to fix other people, or we're not psychologists, but we just humans, and we talk about issues, and then we ask them questions on how and why, not why, sorry, how and what about an issue, and so give people a better perspective. Yeah, so it's a good thing. It's good to have such support groups, and it grows you as a person. You always get very a lot of things because when people work, we always say your work is my work, and we understand that a lot of people have similar issues in the end. And then I do trainings. I've done a training recently in Australia about that. It's called the Mankind Project .org. So Forge is just for men right now, but I think there's similar things which also exist for women. And the Mankind Project is basically they have a training, kind of a signature training called New Warrior Training Adventure, and it's a rite of passage. And today in our modern world, yeah, the young men are not really going through this anymore. If you look at indigenous communities or people who had a very wise way to live in the nature, at 12 years old, a young boy would be sent into the forest, to learn about life on his own. So this is kind of the things we're trying to recreate, and basically for men to rediscover their mission, and basically to define actually their mission in life. And for sure you need to go back to your childhood, your traumas, and things like that during this weekend. But in the end of the day, you come out as a better person, trying to be a better version of yourself. And it's all about walk your talk, accountability, and look at yourself. And then in the bad parts, also at your shadows. And that's great. And that helped me a lot over the past years. I just came back from Australia from a training where I staff, because once you've done that training, you can staff, and people go through many processes, and it's just an amazing experience. And as staff, you learn a lot too, and you help these participants to go through an incredible journey, and it's life changing. So that helped me. For me, what came out very simply, I just so very clear over the next 10 years what I'm going to do and what I'm going to do in my next, let's say, set of life, like when I'm going to be less in operations of businesses and things like that, maybe or 5, 10 years from now, and more being in education and helping people, and being more in transmitting knowledge, this kind of stuff. So that just became so clear to me. It was a bit clear, but not really. And then this weekend helped me to be very clear on that. So I have my path kind of set, which is a beautiful thing. I'm very, very, I would say, grateful to be able to have that and to have done this. And so I would encourage other guys to look at that. And in their country, it's a lot in the US, it's also in Australia, in Europe, and go to one of these trainings.
That's amazing, man. Thanks for sharing this, actually, because
But
as I said
that
before,
book of
yeah,
sorry to interrupt, but that book I just mentioned about Fierce and Tender is all about the masculine and the feminine, is the whole feminine part, and it's also about allowing men to have emotions, because in our modern society, a man has to be strong, cannot cry, it's not well, not seen very well, all this kind of shit. But I think we're all human beings, so it's all about learning men to do that, and then there's a lot of feminine to ourselves too, and it's how to, if you're a better person and more clear, you can also relate better to a woman, be a better father, a better husband, a better whatever. So that is the whole point, is to really create space within yourself for you, and then to being better for the world. So that's the thing. And that guy is one of the, not the founder, but one of the big, let's say, the early leaders of that movement in the States, in America, who started in '85 or '86. So it's full of wisdom in his personal journey, his life, and it's an incredible book. Yeah, that are a few things I can say about it.
that's cool, man. Thank you for sharing this because, as I said before, one of the things that I admire the most about you is this kind of like inner person, right? Which is able to transfer or project positivity and compassion and good vibes onto the world, and you can see it through your work, right?
Yeah,
And also,
thank
like,
you. Yeah,
we hardly talk. That's why I asked you before about failure or slash challenges, because one of the things is how we manage them, right? Because
mm,
sometimes it can destroy us, right? And stop creating value and try to make the world a better place from our own corner, right? And I want to ask you, so what drives you to continue working in this space? Because you said before, sometimes you could be doubt, oh, shall I go back, to the corporate world? Is not an easy journey. So what do you reckon is your main driver at this stage? Like knowing
yeah,
that you also work in yourself and you invest in personal development. So what do you think is your driver?
yeah. My drive is simple. I mean, what I mentioned before was, at the beginning, was about, I started this social enterprise journey about 11 years ago. It was 1 or 2 years after I started, because I still had some doubts. Now, not at all. Um, but like now, it's more, my driver is very simple. It's like, especially with the work I do on myself, I feel I'm more in the space, and I feel better myself, and I can give more for others, because I always like to say, we're in a world where we're trying, the world, you can say, is very complicated. There's a lot of problems, climate change, there's a lot of anxiety created. It's, it's, it comes back to two things. Either you accept fear or you accept love. And not accept that you live in fear, or you live in more in the love. And it's a very simple projection, but it's a choice. You always have the choice. And unfortunately, society, people, the media. I mean, I'm not on media for many years. I do very little of social media, but I'm also not watching TV news, anything, because it's all about negativity, and this is like keeping people into a bad mindset, into fear, and also project how to say preventing them from taking action and changing their life because they want to stay in a secure place because they're feeling their move is gonna be crazy and hard, and that's all created, and I don't think it's true. And I'm blessed that I met that social enterprise well because for me, we are righting the wrongs. We're making the wrongs of the society today right. We're trying, and we're a minority of people, but at least I've done that. And I know that what I'm doing is gonna benefit the society of people. This is the most important for me, and that's what still drives me and will always drive me. And again, as I said, I mean, doing personal work on myself and personal development, I got more of a vision. I'm going to continue into that in a different way. I'm not going to do it through a business, but more through education purely. I also do education now, but it's not my main thing. I'm not in the education business. But then later, I want to mentor people. I want to mentor young people, and you just don't realize how much you inspire people sometimes. And like the young people who come here and sometimes see me and like want to interview me and stuff. And, oh, okay, why? I'm just a normal guy, but I don't feel that. But when I see that maybe the difference is that I believe in myself and that I don't fear too much anymore things, and what come will come. And I will still have failures. I will still have difficult moments, but maybe I will try to reflect and handle them better than I used to. So life is a continuous journey. It will be until the end like this, and it's not an issue. It's I love it, and that's also where you grow and you feel the growth. So I would say in general, I mean, it's very important that you keep everybody is planned for a reason and has skills, has something to offer. And it's to believe already just in that, you can, for sure, it's not easy sometimes to define it. You're not sure, especially if you're younger. Well, what is it? But there is something there. And then when you find it, or the magic can start happening, transformation. But it's just the first mindset is to be sure you can contribute. And everybody has a contribution to give into the world. So, and that's it. So that's my first thing, and that's what still drives me because I see a lot of beautiful people also, and that's how I met you. Coming back to that, I met you at Social Enterprise World Forum. I didn't know you, but when we go to that week, we meet amazing people, amazing stories, people who are doing great stuff, and I'm super inspired. Sometimes I feel like a little bit, oh, your little thing is real little what you do. Now, I'm joking, but it's like, fuck, these guys have they work on very much more very difficult things like gender equality, like problems with rape, with all that, and it's hard things, and it's a beautiful world of people who are really just basically more selfless and really genuinely want to contribute to a better world. So this gives me also drive when I see you again, when we talk, because you're supporting me like by doing this podcast, but like I could do a podcast with you. I'd love that. But in the sense that you we talk a lot about me today, but you do fantastic stuff too in the education world, and so that is helping, and that is the most important thing is to stay in that network of positive people and continuing the journey, and whatever the challenges are, and supporting each other. And just to finish, I want to say like I've seen my work and everything. It's very important about collaboration and really trying to see the world differently and collaborate with different organizations who have different skills. And I've done it the last 3 or 4 years much more than before, and my life is much more easier. And I have the same impact, even sometimes a greater impact. And right now, just before our conversation, I had a call for my other business and trying to collaborate with a organization who does similar things on the island. Why not? And we're trying to find, and that I hope will work because together we're going to have a greater impact. It's early stages of discussion, but I already feel this thing is great. Yes, let us try to dive into this because we will have in the end, the sum of our two things will be better than our individual things. So the sum of the parts will be greater. So yeah, so that's what I want to say.
Oh, that's amazing. And actually, that's the best way to wrap up. Jeroen, always is a pleasure having you around. Thanks for coming to our podcast. And I'm pretty sure like people are gonna learn a lot from this conversation. It's not gonna be the last one. We could be like for 5, 6 hours, but I think this is the best way to finish with this kind of like transformative message, right? Thanks, man.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
I
Oh,
hope
thank
to
you too.
see you
Thank you
soon.
for having me. Yeah, thank you for having me, and see you soon in Europe next year. I would love to hang out with you again. It's always a pleasure, and I'm happy we're reconnected. And again, thank you so much to for having again having that opportunity and talk to your people. And yeah, don't hesitate to contact me. We didn't talk about that too much, but like I'm on social media at Social Impact with a K, not a C, altogether. And you can also contribute to my project. You can check it there. There is a lot of information about my water filter distribution. If you want to contribute, help some people here, don't hesitate. And maybe you're going to put it in your in the tags on when you're going to publish
Sure.
the podcast.
The caption. Okay, man. Thank you. Okay, bye everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.